How's your lungs?
My lungs are okay.
You sure?
How many weeks has it been?
Like, it's been like a month.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
it's been a little over a month now.
Sounds rough.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out
You heard what happened, right?
No.
So, like, my ballet company, so in October 13th, we had, like, our performance and stuff, and our theater lit on fire.
What? What is this, like a movie? Like
I don't know, that's what our lives were like that day. But it was, like, so, like, I guess, like, cardboard on the roof caught on fire, and so all the smoke, like, filtered through the vents downstairs to where we were at. So, like, they were, like, looking everywhere for where the fire was because, like, we got downstairs after the first number in the second act, and we were, like, it was, like, smoky. And we were, like, where's the fire? So then all the fire alarms went off. Everybody evacuated. The, like, whole, like, Glendale Fire Department showed up, put out the fire, then we went back in.
And continued to show.
Yeah.
Wow.
But what we should have done, which we were all in a rush to, like, finish the show, that it was, like, what we should have done was get all the dancers checked out because we were all downstairs. And we didn't end up doing that. So what about you? Crazy stories like that?
Nothing like that.
Oh my god.
It's gotta be at least one.
The only thing I can think of, just off the top of my head, was one time I was in college, and back when I was in college, I performed a lot of gigs, like just singer-songwriter, that type of deal.
Okay.
But I was also involved in my college ministry's intramural basketball team. So I jammed my fourth finger, and like this is like the fretboard side, right? So I literally had like I didn't have an actual cast, so I broke off the end of a plastic fork. And, like I taped it to my finger, and I did a whole set like the next day with just like these three fingers.
Oh god.
Yeah,
Hardcore though.
yeah, it worked out, but it was hilarious.
Sounds like something out of Deadpool or something.
I've never seen that movie.
You have to see that movie.
I have, like, I don't watch
Totally
TV.
PG-13.
Yeah. No, so how I found out about you was actually from her.
Oh,
Because
Yeah.
so, like, we were doing Life on Point, like, the videos and stuff like that, and, like, I don't know how she, like, figured out who you were, but she was like, hey! So, like, our whole, like, video stuff, like, kind of took a shift, and we were kind of like, what do we do? And then she sent me your profile.
oh,
And then, like, you were super interactive, so it was, like, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna, like, message him and see what happens. And here we are, so.
Here we are, 3 people in the room that made
Worked
it
out.
happen.
So, like, how long have you, like, been doing the vlogs and all of that, and, like, what made you get into it?
I think I just posted vlog number 782. So that means story 783 went on my like Instagram stories today. So that's how many days in a row I've been doing it, because I've done it every day. Yeah, so it's like been over 2 years now, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, over 2 years now. Yeah.
About 365
Yeah, yeah.
days.
Yep.
Fact, someone fact checked me, but
We can do
That
math,
is
right?
correct. We're Asian, we're supposed to.
Yeah. So I've been doing it more than 2 years now. And the reason why I started actually was because I used to struggle so much with perfectionism that one of my previous bosses like sat me down and like verbally slapped me up and down because he was like, Calvin, you have like so much talent in terms of like creating stories, producing content, but your fear and your struggle with perfectionism is literally keeping you from doing anything. And like honestly, it was true, because like for me as a creative, like I used to think of it like, oh, if I just edit a little bit more, it'll be more perfect, right? And that came to like my music, my videos, like photography, everything. I was like, oh, I just need a little more time. And what ended up happening was I had like hard drives full of projects that were just never completed. So, you know, he kind of hit it right on the dot. I was afraid of producing anything like subpar quality. I was afraid of what people would think. And he really helped me to see that. So I think it was that day or the day after I decided to just make something every day. Didn't have to be perfect. and I would give myself a time limit for how long I spend on it, just to prevent me from falling into that habit of not completing something. And I forgot how I came up with it, but I just like 15 minutes of editing every day. So that's it. At the end of 15 minutes, like whatever I have is what I post the next day. And that's really how it all started. Like I just filmed on my phone because in my mind I was like, all right, I can't get too technical with it because if I'm doing it every day, like if I'm filming on a DSLR, it's a lot of data for one. And two, it's like adding extra steps for me to actually work. And I want to keep it as simple as possible. So I only used my phone for the first like several hundred
videos.
Wow, hundreds. Wow, that's weird to say. Yeah, for the first several hundred videos, I only use my phone. Actually, most of the time, I still just use my phone. Yeah, I just airdrop it to my MacBook.
Your computer,
Yeah, edit for 15 minutes, and then whatever I have is what I put out the next day.
Wow.
And that's why the playlist system, I was telling her earlier,
Okay.
I finally created a playlist of songs that I would want to use in my vlogs. Because before,
that's
what was
smart.
taking up the most time
Looking for
was looking for music. Like literally like 5 to 6 minutes just scrolling through like my endless playlist and like listening to different parts of different songs. Like,
It's
oh,
so
man.
time consuming.
It's so time consuming. Just like trying to find a perfect song on Insta Story is already time consuming. I can't imagine what it was like just like trying to find the perfect song, especially like since you mentioned being such a perfectionist and having to like put that like somehow on the back burner almost for these like vlogs. It must have been like it felt like counterintuitive to be trying to like find that quote unquote perfect song. For,
Yeah,
like,
and there was that
one
15-minute time limit. So I was like,
Right.
I need to pick one.
It's like spin it. That's it.
Exactly. Honestly, that's how a lot of the first ones happened. I was like, 'cause I had
really?
like right when I first started doing it, like I had no idea like what to do, and like I wasn't even concerned about what people would care about because my goal was just to do something every day.
Yeah.
Force myself to be creative and force myself to not get stuck in perfectionism. So like the first few vlogs were just not good. Like maybe like one of them here and there would be like nice, and I literally did not know what to film, but. As the time went by, I started to literally just film my life. And, like, not all of my vlogs are particularly interesting. Like, sometimes they're pretty, like, mundane. But I also like that idea, at least in terms of my own, like, channel.
Yeah.
Is it really a channel if it's on Instagram? But,
Call it whatever you want. It's the internet.
Right.
it's a channel. But, yeah, I literally just put whatever's going on in my life because for me, the idea is that it's not about creating the most amazing video ever. The goal is literally just to force myself to be creative and not to be held back by my own standards from just producing something.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Honestly, it's helped a lot in a lot of different aspects of my life, just not worrying about producing something that's like 90% great.
Yeah.
Because it's better than not finishing something that's 100% perfect. You know?
Right.
Well, like as a viewer, like me, like viewing your vlogs and not necessarily knowing the backstory until I read your website, I honestly thought, how does he find the determination and the drive to do these vlogs every single day and put out such a great product every single time?
Thank you.
No, but
But it's just
seriously.
like I think it really speaks a lot to just like your skill set and what you have and like I know I'm like much younger than you and I can't exactly give you like advice or anything. But like I think we all have like our biggest critic is ourselves, and I think it's just like it's so easy to see our mistakes and see like, oh, like I didn't edit this well enough, or I didn't like use the right song for this particular moment in this certain video. But like it's just the moment you like just let yourself say, hey, let it go, just do whatever that's when you start to realize like, oh, I do have the capability to be able to do this and to do it well. And that's what I noticed with your stuff was that like it felt like someone who was humble and always growing in his abilities, but also knew, oh, I have this skill set and I'm confident enough to share it to the whole world. And that's why I gravitated towards your content.
Stroking my ego right here.
And that's why I gravitated towards your content, because there was a certain sense of, I think, vulnerability within that. Being able to like be humble about it, but also at the same time be like, hey, I can do this, and I'm comfortable enough and vulnerable enough to share it to everyone else.
Yeah.
Thank you. Like I love it. I'm so glad that's what you got from it. Like, thank you for saying all of that. Honestly, I mean, you're both like dancers, right? You know, like you practice like numbers of hours, and at the end of the day, other people only see the performance, right?
Yep.
But you're only able to achieve the quality of the performance because of all the practice that goes into it. So if you think about it, like the vlogging that I do is literally practicing like film editing.
Right.
And because I do it every day, it makes it so much easier. Like these days, I only spend like maybe 5 to 10 minutes.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, like
I wish I can do that for like your stuff.
You spend like hours.
Just trying to perfect it. I remember I remember watching your old Life on Point videos when I first started editing, and like at the time, it becomes shorter as like you have more experience. But I remember spending hours on those footage.
She would
and
spend
now
like days and pull all-nighters. It
Yeah.
was insane. I'm like, you need to eat and sleep and like stop killing yourself over these videos. Like,
yeah, but like looking back, I'll still look back at those, and I just like, why did I put so much time into it? You know, and the product that I see now from like the first videos, I can probably do like in an hour.
yeah, and I think for us, it's easy to like look back and be like, wow, how did we struggle with this so much before? But I think for a lot of like fresh creatives, like people who are new to video editing, for example, we care so much about the project and making every little thing look nice. Sometimes we forget that first video that we edit is just going to be one in the hundreds that we edit eventually. Like by the end of our lifetime, I don't know how many videos people edit, but like sometimes it's nice for me to like look back on old vlogs and be like, wow, this used to be so hard for me.
Right.
You know, kind of like as you said, like just to see how far you've come. And I think for people who are new to it, it's just important to remember that what you're really concerned about right now is not going to be as important even like half a year from now, because you're just going to get better.
Yeah.
I think like for me, like when I like, cause I started, especially like in this like last couple of months, because like things have been like so hard in regards to dance, like getting to go back and see, what was it? I think it was like 15-year-old Ellie just like going in and like just doing it. And like the first video that I ever posted on my YouTube channel was my advanced 1 exam, and it was like basically like going through like what I did and like all that stuff, and then like, and that's like what inspired like bringing people into the process of like what you see on stage is not what ballet is. Like at the end of the day, like that's what you think ballet is, but it's not what ballet is. And like ballet is literally blood and sweat and tears and hours of just like
It's hardcore
pain. Yeah, just like pain and training and like beating your body into like positions it doesn't want to be in half the time. And it's just like, and so that's like why I was like excited to start that. And so like whenever I was like, my mom was like, you need to like go and like watch your old videos and like re-inspire yourself. And I was like, as crappy as those videos were and how cringe I was on camera when I was 16 years old, I'm so happy that now as a 19-year-old, I can go back and look at those and just be like, oh my gosh, like that's where I was and like this is where I am now. And so it's like, I don't know, that's like kind of the cool thing about the internet too, is just seeing like, hey, that's like my life. And like, if you told me back then that this is where I'd be, then I'd probably be like, no, no, it's not.
And it's crazy because you're only 19, and like just think of it like 2-3 years from now, you're gonna look back at this point in time and be like, wow.
How did I end up interviewing
Hopefully,
Calvin?
I know. True.
That great. Literally just an Asian boy from 626. Like that's it. But
I mean, hey, I'm an Asian girl from Bakersfield. Half the world doesn't even know where the heck Bakersfield is. So
Yeah.
I mean, like, we met in Irvine at a ballet intensive, and like
Wow.
You see Irvine Zotz.
yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. So like we met at a summer intensive, and like she's like literally one of the only friends that I have from like my teenage years that I'm still friends with today.
Oh,
And
really?
so
I'm
yeah.
honored.
It's her and my friend Corey, and that's pretty much like those are the only people that are still in my life that are still like my like close friends. And so then it's just like interesting because like we have like photos and like things like that, and it's just like sometimes I look at social media and I'm kind of just like, I hate social media. I hate social media. And some days I'm just like, I don't want to post. I don't want a video. I don't want to edit. I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to put myself out there, even for the 125 people that are subscribed on my YouTube channel kind of a thing. You know, it's like, I just want to just like be in like myself. Like, do you have days like that where you're just like, I don't want to film. I would really rather not edit. Like,
I mean, what you bring up is actually a very common point. I actually personally really love social media, but I think it's because of how I use it and the way I think of it.
yeah.
I think for a lot of, I think it's just because I hang out with a lot of like influencers or wannabe influencers. So for them, it's all about trying to grow. It's
Yeah.
what'll get them the highest engagement. It's all about numbers, like number of likes they're gonna get. I think what I really appreciate now with my decision on the vlogging that like I'm like patting myself on the back for was that it was never about like getting big. For me, it was like very much linked to just my personal development, and also as a way for me to just remember the little things in life. Like I still look back on some of my vlogs, and it's not just to see like how far I've come, but it's because a lot of them are about my family. A lot of them are about like my church and my friends, and like I think I'm probably the one who views my stories the most. Like that's probably it, because like I'll go back like
come from me.
yeah, right? Because especially like holiday season or whenever like summer activities, like it's so fun to like look back on all the things that I forgot. It's like keeping like a photo album,
Yeah.
you know? And that's one thing that I really love about social media is because you can enjoy it with all of your friends. Like you don't have to worry about you posting everything. Like everyone
Yeah.
can like post stuff and you just like reference things later, look back on stuff. I think it's a really fantastic tool for archiving and just
Yeah.
remembering experiences. I think the challenge is that these days a lot of people pursue like influence, because I mean it's kind of like back in our parents' age, they're like everyone want to be a celebrity, like a TV star,
Yeah.
something like that. And now being a social media influencer has taken over that position in
Yeah. It's even bigger than acting in Hollywood right now.
yeah, everyone just wants to be an influencer, and like I get it, like it's cool and it's fun to know that you can influence the opinions of a lot of other people, but I think it really just depends on your outlook, because it can very quickly become unhealthy
Yeah.
for your mindset. And like this is also why I see a lot of influencers like just drop out of
Yeah.
doing it, because it's so exhausting to always be worried about what other people think of you.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that's just a mindset.
Yeah.
So all the concerns that you brought up,
Yeah.
they're very valid, because a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah.
But I would challenge people to recognize that it's not the fault of social media as a platform, but rather as the way of thinking that we've developed in this current society. You know, because everyone's looking for validation,
Yeah.
and social media is the quickest access to validation, if you think about it that way. And that's why platforms like Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all of those got so big, because it was so easy to get validation from other people. And so people get
Yeah.
hooked on it, and then people pursue it, and it leads to a very unhealthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right.
That's like really interesting that like you brought that up, just like not because like my next question was gonna be like, do you ever get like, 'cause something that I've been facing recently is I put out a blog post about anxiety probably a few, like I was telling her about this probably a few months ago now, and like I was getting emails, like long emails, I was getting like DMs, like all this stuff about how like from their perspective, like, you know, you should kill yourself, like your mom should have exercised her right as a woman to abort you, like you should have, you know, like just like all this stuff, like you're bipolar, you're this, you're that. And so like for me, like, and then it just started like, and I'm like, how am I over here with like not that great, you know, like just like receiving that feedback from people that like, not even that I didn't know, because it was from some people that I didn't know, but even from people I did know. And then it started getting into like body image stuff, and like I started getting these like horrible comments about like, you know, my body and like all this stuff, and then like, you know, just like confused, like how did it become this? And I don't know if that's just because of the realm that we're in as far as like dance and fitness, and if that has something to do with it. But yeah, it kind of caused me to like draw back and just like not, I haven't written a blog post since. Like every time I start writing it, I never finish it because I'm like, I can't do this. So like, how do you get to that space, or how did you get to that space of just being like, I'm doing this for me and not letting those other comments kind of damage your soul, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, like, everyone who's at least making a statement is going to get some hate.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't really matter, like, where it's on or, like, what industry you're in. It just happens.
Yeah.
Because people who stand out attract attention. You're going to get hate from someone, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, I feel that a lot of people who are directing hate is probably just because they don't know you well. And they're projecting onto you what they believe you are. Right? And, like, I think the biggest example of this is, like, YouTube hater comments. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, it still happens. Like, it makes me funny. Or I think it's really funny because it makes me think back on when I used to do like a lot of music on YouTube. Like, honestly, I'm not like that great of a singer. Like, I'm okay.
I'm okay.
I'm okay, right? But
I'm up there.
I'm not good enough to like sing professionally, in my opinion. At least like not at this stage. But I still like record it. I still put stuff on YouTube, and that's like putting myself out there. And other people who would leave me like hate comments is because they think that I think I'm awesome, right? And they think that I think I'm worthy of a lot of attention. But the thing is, I think for as creatives, maybe not all creatives, but at least for some creatives, probably like you and myself, we're doing it because we love doing it. And, you know, we're not necessarily the best.
Yeah.
But it's not like we're saying we're the best when we put stuff out there. And I think that's the disconnect. Because whenever someone sees something on YouTube, sees something on Instagram, they immediately project that ego onto us. Right? And so I think that's important to consider, because I think if you really take the time to get to know anyone, it's very hard to hate someone.
Yeah.
Right? And they just haven't had that opportunity to really get to know you. So...
Yeah, I was gonna mention on this topic because her comments about, or her discussion about anxiety and depression and mental health obviously received a lot of backlash. I had a complete opposite experience where I posted a dance that was really personal to me because it was a message, and it was dealing with my mental health and my mental issues. And I got a lot of very positive feedback. And I got a lot of DMs saying I didn't know if it was appropriate to post it on your public comments, but I just wanted to say that I support you.
Yeah.
And that I am here for you. And I think it was just, for me, when I heard her sigh, I thought it was just like really fascinating how I felt. I have a very small following, you know, compared to Life on Point or her personal account. But it was because I had such a small following that the people who got to see my content on social media, even if I don't post that often, know me better than her many followers. So I think it was also, when it comes to it, it's really like, as you said, like that disconnect. responsibility of someone posting and responsibility of someone viewing is to bridge that disconnect and make sure that whatever we do to each other on social media, we treat each other as humanely as possible and with the mindset that we are kind and understanding to one another. And I think because of the nature of the nature of how we use social media, it's so easy to forget that. Like, it's work to be kind. It's work to be nice. You know? So I think it was, when I heard her, I was honestly very surprised because I didn't get that backlash, and that really got me thinking, oh, people out there are like that. And it's about how do we deal with it, you know?
I mean, part of it's also like sample size and audience demographic. Like, if your following is like just your friends and family,
Right.
usually you'll probably just get a really positive amount of
Right.
feedback, versus like if you have a lot of people who maybe don't know you personally following you, then it's very easy to have that disconnect. So yeah, it would just be much simpler if people were kinder to each other in general, right?
As cliche as it sounds.
As cliche as it sounds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is why your platform fascinated me, because you have, is it several K? I don't quite remember off the top of my head how
Yeah, several K.
many.
I think it's like somewhere after 6K. I don't know
you
how
have
many.
a pretty sizable following, but every time I look at your comments, they're also like nice and positive. You're like, keep this going, yada yada yada, and it's fascinating to consider like sample size and population, and like the fact that I think it's like when you've successfully found a way to bridge that disconnect, that really can take the audience a whole way in terms of like keeping up with you and doing it out of like genuine respect for you rather than I'm following you for the sake of your influence.
Yeah. No, that was the general like
Right.
first impression that I got from your profile, was like how positive it was. Like after meeting you, like you yourself are a very positive person in general, but like it shines through in your social media. So it was like, and it's like not that like fake I'm happy kind of a thing. It's like, you know, like what I'm talking about, like where you see a profile and you're like, that's not real. They're trying to make it seem real, but that's not real. Like yours was just like genuine and authentic, and I think that's what like drew me to actually like want to view your stuff, because of just like the genuine positivity and like kindness and happiness that I got from watching the video and knowing that that was an authentic thing. Because like, I don't know, I'm a very aggressive type of personality, so I'm gonna say things that are gonna probably offend people, but I don't like fake people. I don't like fake energy. I don't like it. It's like something that actually ticks me off. So it's like, for me, the friends that I have that I'm surrounding myself with are very authentic people. And I think
Are you sure about that?
Excuse me. No, but like when I look at social media, and I think with my bigger issue with social media is like what you were saying. You're saying, you know, like don't blame the social media generally, but it's like the mindset of the way people handle it. And so it was just, I thought that was kind of interesting, because I was like, I think that's like what it is about social media that just like, I kind of just like makes me want to just draw back completely and just be like, screw social media. Like I really don't need it. I'm cool with like my 10 friends on Snapchat that I just like, you know, send a video every day to, and like, it's just like, Snapchat to me is much more personal than Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, because it's literally like just my friends, like, and so it's something personal, and I'm like alerting my friends like, hey, I've got this going on, or hey, and it's like, that's like almost in a weird way like my safe place when it comes to social media, and everything else is kind of like just out there. So it was, I mean,
And as like an advisor of your content, right? And like as your friend, I'm always saying, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, because that is what that's why people stay, and that's why people begin to genuinely be there for you. The people who follow you is because, oh, they can see that side of you, and
Yeah.
that's what and when I edit her and she says, "Oh, can you edit this out?" I'm like, "Excuse me, this is this is the one thing that is why people love you, and you shouldn't have to feel
They
like
love
you
me
need
or hate me for it. You mean?
But like if you put in that attitude of like people do need this,
Yeah.
and people do need this to be said, then no matter what hate you get, you know, that determination, that drive to put that message out there can outweigh
Yeah.
the controversy that surrounds it, because like everyone has something to say. You have every right to say it. You know, and social media is a platform where you can say it. That's how I view it.
I mean, honestly, I feel like perception it also just has a lot to do with branding, the way you market yourself, and just how you position yourself with your audience.
Yeah.
Right. I like to think that the reason my page hasn't been flooded with hate is because for me, I'm not positioning myself to my audience as someone who's superior to them. Like, I'm not saying that I live a better life than anyone else.
Yeah.
I'm also not saying that I myself as a person am better than anyone else. It's literally just me sharing my life as a journey with other people. And that's not even the primary purpose. It's mainly for me.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, if other people happen to enjoy this content and if they want to find me, then cool, you can follow me, but I don't need you to follow me.
Yeah.
Right? It's very much a mutual power standing, if that makes sense.
Right.
And that's where I feel like maybe a lot of people trying to pursue like influence make it called out on, because sometimes they position themselves as being not necessarily superior, but maybe more
Knowledgeable.
knowledgeable with something, or I don't know. It's just anytime you're positioning yourself as someone who's better at anything than someone else, you're immediately putting on an inferiority complex onto them. And so that's why I try not to do with my vlogs, which I feel like isn't too difficult because it's literally just my life. Like,
You're like, this
like,
is day-to-day life.
yeah, like I think in very few of my vlogs I'm actually like even trying to teach someone something.
Yeah.
I'm literally just sharing with people what I happen to be doing, which I feel like most of the time now is just eating.
I know the last like since I've been like seeing your content, it's just like food.
Yeah, I feel like I should just turn it
awesome,
into
though.
like a
Turn
food
it into
vlog.
a food
Like,
vlog.
might as well.
So like I was gonna ask, this was something that I was kind of curious about. That's like not necessarily related to social media or being a creative, but have you ever taken the personality tests in any way?
Which one?
MBTI, whatever.
I don't remember what it's called, but it's like
Myers-Briggs?
Myers-
I think that's what
Enneagram? Oh, okay.
Enneagram.
Oh, Enneagram?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a 1 wing 2, I think.
Okay.
Oh, I haven't taken that one.
I don't think I've taken that one either. What's the one with all the letters?
Then Myers-Briggs.
Oh, Myers-Briggs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant then.
Yeah, so I'm a INFJ.
You are?
You're an INFJ. Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
I'm surprised that that's so surprising.
I'm so surprised right now because I'm an INFJ as well.
Oh, you are?
Hey.
Yeah. I left out. I'm
No,
an
but, like,
INFP.
Wait,
You're an INFP?
They're not. The personality traits are not better than the other. It's just like a different way of thinking.
No,
Yeah.
it's because me and my mom have been talking about this, just like different personalities, because I just find it so. Like, I think that it's the INFJs that are like less than like 1% of the population or whatever.
2%.
2%. Okay. I do not know many INFJs. The guy I'm dating is a INFJ. My mom is an INFJ, and then my mom's friend is an INFJ, and I just recently met another one. But before that, I was like, I never really knew that they existed other than me and my mom. And I was like, me and my mom are practically the same person, so this is not helpful. So it's like, it's interesting. So like, for me, I don't know if this is just like also just like part of other things, but it's like, I'm very like aggressive in personality.
For me, my personality trait considers me like an introvert.
Yeah.
And I don't identify as so. I identify more ambivert than like introverted. Or like if I were to describe myself to most people, ambivert with like more introverted tendencies. Because yes, I'm an introvert, but I make so many choices in my life.
What is an ambivert? I haven't heard.
It's like a mix of both.
Is it a mix of both? Okay.
But because of the life choices that I've made, such as like being involved in dance a lot, which requires a lot of collaboration, a lot of communication with other people, I did have to put myself in positions where I had to be extroverted.
Yeah.
And that's where my extrovertism comes from. I don't even know if I said that word right. Extrovertism, extrovert, is that a word?
Yeah.
So I feel like even if you like those categories at the end of the day for me are just like a fun way of being able to, and an easy way to being able to explain yourself. But I think all of us are a lot more complex than just 4 letters.
Yeah.
Because we
100%.
all make choices every single day in how to pursue our outlook on life.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can just limit our outlook on life on like 4 very basic traits. And that is like the critique of like the Myers-Briggs test is that it narrows it down a bit too much.
Yeah, I think it also depends on where you get tested and with what test. Because the one that I took was like 2 hours. It was like a really comprehensive one.
Right.
Yeah.
And even then, like they acknowledge like, oh, some things like there's a little bit of leeway, right? Versus I know a lot of people like take like really short quizzes online.
Yeah.
There's no way those things are going to be super accurate.
I think I took the 2-hour long one.
Yeah, y'all need to introduce me to the 2-hour-long one. I only took
Find
like,
it.
But I
several
think
places online.
oh yeah, I mean I don't think it's something you're gonna find online. I think like
Right.
there's one that's called like Strengths Finder.
Yeah,
That's one of 'em.
Back in the day, Mr. Eli gave me that one, and so I have no idea where he got it from. He was just like, take it. So he was like, I want to know what your personality type is. We're not compatible, so.
But I think it also like leads to a discussion as to like, why do we keep seeking out these tests? You know, like
Validation of our identity.
Validation, right? Exactly. Like coming back to that idea, it's just like so many people have this app. I have it too, called CoStar, where it's like it's an astrological app.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it.
Sorry, I have a completely different idea of what CoStar is. It's like a commercial real estate company.
And it just fascinates me how like people are so quick to be like, oh my god, you're an Aquarius and you're a Pisces, maybe it'll work, you know, like it, like yes, like that validation is much needed because we all seek it, but I think we often forget sometimes that it's very superficial if we keep seeking for it, and like that goes back to the conversation of social media and why we like keep like catering towards it is because of that immediate response, but that response is very surface level.
It's also very skewed.
And skewed.
Yeah.
So it's much harder to just get down there and like acknowledge all the ugly stuff sometimes, you know.
Yeah, I mean at the end of the day, like personality quizzes and personality traits only go so far, right? Because those they provide a very broad sense of who you are, and when you get into the more granular details, like the choices you make, your values, do you lean more on like ethics or morals? Religion plays a part in it as well.
Yeah.
Like you can have 2 people with like the same breakdown and be completely different.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's funny that you don't think or you didn't get the aggressive
Yeah.
like off of meeting me, like because in my mind, dude, I'm like hella aggressive, but I
Really?
think it's just a different approach to it.
Yeah.
Because
He's positively aggressive.
I'm negative. No, but like when you first met me, did you see like, oh, she's probably has a much more aggressive personality?
Oh god.
I don't
not
think
that
it's like a more
conversation.
or less. I just think it's a difference in how it's manifested in our tendencies.
Okay.
Yeah, because like knowing myself, I'm a very aggressive and very ambitious person.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's not good thing to call myself, but I think I'm very cunning as well. It's not really a positive term.
I know what you mean by it though, because
Yeah.
I understand that aspect of like feeling that way. Like I'm kind of like, I've figured out how to just like kind of play a trick if I need to, and it's not necessarily like to like manipulate anything in my favor, but it's just like you learn skills that you're kind of like, oh, I'm quick at this, and you know, there's no other word for it. It just happens to have a negative connotation.
I mean, I think that's something that you'll refine over time, because like also keeping in mind, I'm 27, turning 28 in like, a few months. You're only 19. Like, give yourself some credit.
Yeah.
But the reason why I am the way I am, why I behave the way that I do, is because I'm constantly looking at my own life, assessing where I want to be, and I'm just making decisions around that. So I'm very like, I'm like extremely introverted. Like on the Strengths Finder test, I think I tested like 92% introverted.
Yeah.
Not completely accurate, but I'm definitely super introverted. And for me, I pushed myself to develop social skills. Work on my social anxiety, because I knew that in order to get to where I want to be, I had to overcome all those things.
Yeah.
Right? So it doesn't take away the fact that I still struggle with that, but it's just I've developed practices to help me get past it. Like every night, like this is why I need like a schedule, because every night I'll run through what I'm going to do the next day in my mind and mentally prepare
For the next day.
for the next day. And
I
then
am
at
the
the
same
end
way.
of the day, I need to like take a step back and just like not talk to anyone.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's very draining for like energy draining.
Yeah.
Not that I dislike people. Like I love a lot of people. It's just I get tired doing it. And I'm
Yeah.
sure like a lot of introverts can also relate. Like
Yeah.
the thing with introversion and like extroversion is that I don't think it really defines your behavior. It's just a matter of how you rest and how you expend energy. Like a lot of extroverted people tend to have similar characteristics because they get energy from being around people, versus a lot of introverts behave similarly because they expend energy when they're around people. So I think that's one major flaw of the Myers-Briggs test. Not that it's bad,
Right.
but it's just something to consider, because if you break down those tendencies, like you can work on them. Like I'm trying to think of an example. Like being socially awkward, for example, for being introverted. I used to be hella socially awkward, like not knowing what to do in conversations, and then also feeling very self-conscious about myself in conversations. But that's not directly causated by being introverted.
Yeah.
Like it's a correlation, but it's not a causation because I'm introverted. And so coming to that realization, you can then develop skills and practice not being
socially awkward.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's
Right.
I don't think anyone's ever like completely not socially awkward.
It's
Yeah.
a
But
whole discussion of psychology, really.
yeah, it's definitely something you can work on. You
Yeah.
know?
Right.
Yes.
It just brought me back to my psychology classes and how like they were like, just because there's a correlation does not mean it's a causation. Like I heard that lecture,
You're like,
Wow.
more flashbacks all over
you are
again.
my professor.
I'm like, are you my professor?
Do you want to
Yeah.
take a quick break and grab some water
Yes.
and refill? And
Sounds like a good idea.
I know.
the fact that we've been friends long enough for us to reach our 20s.
That's true. I
Like,
never
I
think
mean,
about- I
just,
never
like-
think about it.
I know, because I'm gonna turn 20 in July. She's turning 21, and I'm like, the fact that a lot of my friends are now gonna be we've reached our 20s. Like, I appreciate the fact that I have two friends that have like made it with me into my 20s. Like,
Oh my god.
just because like I grew up with a lot of people that like came and went, and so it was just like one of those things that I'm like,
Right.
I think about it sometimes and I'm like, wow, like that's mind-blowing to me.
I feel like I don't tend to think that as often because most of my friends that I've made like since high school have
You're still friends with. Yeah.
So I don't really think about that as much.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that people haven't been in and out of my life. I think it's more like people were in my life during this time period where I was not in a place to build those kind of friendships.
Yeah.
And when I finally reached a place where I was able to build those kinds of friendships, I didn't really think about it anymore because it naturally came to me.
And I think, too, it could be just, like, one of those homeschooling traits that you inherit. And, like, especially since I didn't go through charter school. I was, like, homeschooled. The only places, like, I'm not kidding when I say the only places I ever went to when I was a kid was dance, church, and home. That was it. Because everything was at home, everything was at church, and everything was at dance. That was where my life was. From the time I was a child to the time I turned 18 and got a car and discovered there was a whole new world outside of my house and church and dance. So, but I mean, I'm such a homebody that I feel like I'm still kind of like I get stuck in like my 5 places. So it's like something I do enjoy doing is meeting new people and doing new things. And like that's what like made me wonder if I had switched from introvert to extrovert really quickly. Once I came
probably
out.
just ambitious.
No, I realized later because I was like, okay, no, I definitely get drained by people. Like, even the people that I love hanging out with. Like, we have a big, like, back in Bakersfield, we have a big group of friends. And, like, there's a ton of us. We always have a good time when we're together. And we're crazy and loud. But after I get home, I'm so, like... I'm tired. I need some alone time. I need to not talk to people for at least 12 hours. Like, so I think I realize I'm like, no, I'm ambitious and I like trying new things. And I think that, again, like what you were saying, like extrovert and introvert is just kind of like a box. And like, it's not quite as cut and dry as... being an INFJ or an extrovert or an introvert or all of that. So, yeah, what was your question?
Oh, yeah, I was going to go back to social media and what it's like for your friends and family to, like, be posting content about them on social media. Like, are they okay with it? How do you get...
How do you navigate
How do you navigate all of that?
I know.
Because I'm sure, like, not all of your family is, like... Or not all of your friends are okay with, oh, you can post me on social media and I'll be totally fine with it. So how do you...
I think
walk around that
or have
conversation.
you never had to have that
Or
conversation?
you never had to have that conversation.
I've had to have that with like a couple. I mean, even with like earlier today, one of my best friends just asked me to not film him. Like I can film the food. I was at a restaurant. I can film the food, but just not him.
course you were.
Like some people are not comfortable with that, and I totally get it.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't feel like it's ever been an issue. I think because of the way my content is styled, it's very much like a slice of life type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily portraying anyone in like an exaggerated manner. It's literally just my friends.
Yeah.
Also, I don't think I've ever portrayed anyone negatively.
Yeah.
Which is a big concern for most people when they're showed in footage. I mean, honestly, it's kind of expected now. Like, at first, it was a little awkward.
They're like,
It really depends on
huge
who.
camera.
Well, no, I just use my phone.
Oh, your phone,
right?
okay.
Yeah, which also takes away a lot of the nervousness.
Like, nervousness, yeah.
Yeah, it feels not
Awkward.
professional. Like, it feels like a home video.
Yeah.
I mean, really, all these are just home videos.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm basically a dad before I'm a dad.
You're living that dead life.
Yeah.
You'll make a great one, don't worry.
Oh, thank you. I hope so.
You're gonna have like your little family vlogs. That's gonna be so cute.
Yeah. That'll be its own thing later.
That's going to be a whole nother thing to navigate with, like, putting children on the internet and stuff, too.
There's so many guidelines for that nowadays too. Just like with YouTube. I mean, YouTube just switched their guidelines again. I got this whole like email like reviewing the new contract and everything. So I was like, whoa, wow, okay. So it's like, you know, minors and all this stuff. Even on Instagram, they've changed some of their guidelines for stuff. So it's just interesting to like see. And it's like, I wonder what happened to make that such a big issue.
I mean, honestly, I think it's just the manner in which people are utilizing social media. Like I said earlier, I don't think social media is the problem.
Yeah.
It's the people.
The people.
Yeah. The people and our perception of the platform.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, that's where the problem comes from.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's just a tool.
Yeah.
right? It has no emotion of its own. But getting back to what you asked earlier, the people who have had a problem with it, just tell me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's because of the relationship that I have with the people that I actually film. Because I'm not necessarily filming people, I'm filming the activity and like what's happening, right? Like the spotlight isn't on a specific person, it's just what we happen to be doing.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't think I've really had any problems. There was like only like one situation where someone felt a little bit uncomfortable, but she felt comfortable enough with me to bring it up, right?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of relationship that I just try to have with people. So I think if you just have open communication, it's like not a problem. And it's funny because now like a recent development is that people are offended if I don't vlog what I'm doing with them. Yeah,
Wow.
it's happened a few times now
Okay.
where like
You're like, oh, okay.
we'll be like in the middle of doing something.
You're like, where's your camera?
Like, are you not gonna vlog this? Like, am I not gonna be on your Instagram? It's
Oh
like,
my God.
dude, please, like,
Okay.
I'm flattered that they want to be on my channel,
Right,
but
yeah.
like, yeah.
You're like,
I mean,
"So
it's
present."
funny because actually, the times that I'm not filming, it's because I want to be very present in the
Present,
moment,
yeah.
right? Like, I'm not filming every day. Like, I edit every day, but I'm not filming every day.
Right.
Okay.
And it's like if I'm going on a date, for example, like I'm not gonna bring out my, I'm not gonna do that. Like I want to be very present, right? Like even if it's like a holiday or a family thing, like maybe I'll like snap a little bit of it,
Yeah.
and then the rest of the time I'll be very present with my siblings and with my family.
Yeah.
And so I think that's also why there's not as much of an issue, because I think for some people it feels like they're experiencing things just for the gram. But for me, it's more just like, oh, I'm just doing this to remember it, and then I'm very present in the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because I've certainly had issues, at least one time with my father, where I posted a dance video and I filmed it in the house.
Yeah.
And
I had a couple of those too.
And I had to take it down because they were like, the house is this, you shouldn't be posting our house on social media because you don't know who's out there. And I'm like,
So it's the inside of the house. But
it's
okay.
the inside, but okay.
Yeah.
And just like stuff like that where sometimes, you know, you look at material and you're like, I really want to post this, but I don't know if I should because there's like
Yeah.
other people in it as well. And it's just stuff like that.
Yeah. I think my thing too is like that I like struggle with that. Not necessarily as like filming in public and stuff, but it's just like the things that I say or the things that I want to say I know is going to offend somebody. So it's always like a constant fear of like, which is why she always tells me, she's like, just rant and then I'll censor you because I know what should be said and what shouldn't be said, which is the pro of having your best friend edit your videos. So, but for me, there are a lot of things that I wish I could say that I just don't say because of other people. And it's like, it's more of like because I struggled a lot, like, and I still struggle with it from time to time, but not as much as I used to. But like my dad and my mom being pastors and leaders of a church, and my dad heading 2 big networks, and like just like ministry in general, just like kind of just like having this fear that anything that I do would reflect back onto them, which is constantly the case, not necessarily negatively, but in a positive way. But for me, I think I'm afraid that it's going to turn negative, so then I'm kind of like, I'm just not going to say anything. So, like, what would be your tip for, like, choosing to break out of that box without...
So, I still think you should say what your actual opinion is, because that's who you are. It's what you believe,
Yeah.
right? But maybe what you could do is just about how you phrase certain
Yeah.
statements. the manner that they come off of. Like, I mean, I'm sure people are going to listen to this. There's got to be at least one person who's going to think like, who is this Calvin dude? Like, he sucks. Right? There's going to be at least one person, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to make the whole world happy. And it shouldn't be that way,
Right.
right? Because people come from different backgrounds, different beliefs. But one thing that you could do to help yourself in that element is getting to know more people from different backgrounds, different beliefs, opposing opinions to yours. Because
It's just funny because we are the opposing.
We are
of each other. We are so opposing. Like,
So opposing that we're soulmates. Anyway.
I mean, the point is to understand others as much as you can,
yeah.
so that you can consider their stance when you state your own position,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's okay if other people disagree with you, but I think the delivery is very important because no one likes to feel that they're lower than someone else,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? The moment you put out an opinion, you're automatically positioning yourself as an authority figure by actually stating something. So one of the greatest challenges of communication is to reduce that tension as much as you can so that your actual message gets across
Yeah.
and not the emotional tension that's developed because of the natural conflict, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So, do you want to talk about guided journals or any of that, or
Sure, yeah, I can talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
what are you doing with that?
What's
Gu-
that, by the way? I don't even know.
I haven't told very many people. Guided journals is basically a product that I've been developing. It's kind of like a cross between a self-help book / journal / like devotional. I mean, it's basically a book, but I'm trying to help people really get to understand themselves better and develop different lines or schools of thought. I mean, maybe they don't have to like agree with it, but at least like understand it so that they can then improve their like personal lives and their professional lives. The first guided journal is written on identity. So I basically wrote like 30 messages on like various aspects of identity. And that's to help you really understand your wants, needs, how you believe the world should operate. Because everyone thinks a little bit differently. And sometimes people haven't been exposed to that type of thought. Like, what's ethics and what's morals?
Sounds
Right.
philosophical.
It's very.
I mean, it's
philosophical,
it's a bit philosophical, but like a
Yeah.
lot of people use them interchangeably. Oh my gosh, I can't talk today.
Interchangeably.
But I think the nuance is where you really figure out who you are,
Yeah.
right? It's not saying that one way of thinking is better than the other, but at least if you understand how you operate, then you can at least act in a way that's not in conflict with yourself,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's where a lot of disconnect comes from, because in this day and age, there's like so much talk about like political correctness, which I actually don't think it's an issue. Like, a lot of people make a big deal about not being able to say what they want to say because of political correctness.
Yeah.
But I think it's really just because they don't know how to really communicate what they believe in.
Properly, yeah.
And a lot of people are just using catchphrases and terms that they hear that might not be in true alignment with how they actually believe, because they haven't taken the time to really think about it. You know, it's like, especially the case with like political parties, right? Whether you associate yourself with being like a Democrat or a Republican, those parties in themselves have so many people who identify as such that you may completely disagree with,
Yeah.
right? And even considering the leadership may have like skewed perceptions of different reasons why the party should exist, right?
Right.
So I think you really need to consider that, because a lot of people think of it as opposing sides of a battle, right? It's like Republicans
Yeah.
versus
Versus
Democrats,
Democrats. Yeah.
right? But in reality, it's just two different ways of thinking to solve the same problem,
Right.
right? And people are too quick to think of it as like a battle.
Right. Like, there's so many issues right
Mm-hmm.
now that are so bipartisan, but I feel like it gets so lost, especially in media,
Mm-hmm.
in social media, where it's so much easier to perceive things as one side or the other.
Mm-hmm.
That
Dry,
middle
black and
ground.
white, Yeah.
gets dried up and it doesn't get acknowledged because like people say, oh, it's boring, it's not entertaining. Maybe, but that's the important stuff. That's what we need to focus on. If we don't get a chance to focus on it, then we just get lost in this mayhem that just never ends, really, because people will still think it's a battle. People will still think, oh, like this issue is right and this side of the issue is wrong. Like, no, it's just different methods of thinking. And it's being able to look at the other side and being like, oh, okay, that's how you see it. This is how I see it. Now, how do we make it work? And I feel like that gets so lost in our perception of media and our perception of social media, particularly. Like, there's this great series on Jubilee called Middle Ground.
I haven't heard of it.
Oh, you haven't heard
Tell me
of it?
more.
Where, like, they have two opposing sides discuss and literally reach a middle ground of sorts. You should check it out. And I think it really breaks down how, like, we perceive all of this. And, like, I think as a culture, we are so used to seeing, like, two sides of debates and stuff that we don't acknowledge that there is a debate about how to reach that place where we can...
Ground.
That common ground. So...
And people try so hard to reach that. Like, that's what they're desperate for, but they're completely missing it.
They're
it's-
missing the point.
It's me against you kind of a thing. Like, if we me and her weren't somebody that we were just like, we put our friendship first, like, this is like something that we want, we would probably be like, oh, we're opposing, so it's me versus you.
Right.
It's my opinion versus your opinion, or my belief versus your belief.
Like,
But
we forget to listen.
Yeah. But we've had plenty of conversations about our views on politics and why we believe what we believe. And, like, I mean, I know that I can understand where she's coming from and, the way that she believes what she believes. And I'm sure it's vice versa for you. And
for
so
sure.
I think that's why when you were telling me about guided journals, I was, like, really connected with it. Because of the fact that I'm like, our generation is so hungry for something like that, but we have no identity. Because... my dad talks a lot about fatherlessness being, the root issue, a lot of times on why there's lack of identity, and it's a byproduct, people are a byproduct of what is happening at home and all of that. And so I think it's really needed for somebody to step in, and because for me personally, I hated philosophy in high school. I hated everything that was philosophical. I hated critical thinking. I hated all of it. And now it's the most, like, it's one of the biggest things that I use now in every day-to-day life. But I think for me, the reason why I hated it so much in high school was because it wasn't something that I felt like I could relate to, and I had no idea how it was going to help my life. So, like, that's what I really appreciated about you just talking about guided journals and saying, like, it's helping you identify what's right for you and helping you find yourself along the way with that. So I think...
And, like, a reminder that whatever you put in your guided journals is, again, just one way of looking at
Yeah.
Like, it's one way of viewing identity.
Right.
Yeah. So
anybody can find their way. They just have to figure it out, and... Applied philosophy, if you will. Applied mathematics, applied philosophy, that should be a thing.
Goodness. Sounds so, like, left brain for me.
Oh my god. Yeah. But you are left brain. Well,
I mean, I've started to realize that in some situations you have to be. Like, it's not, sometimes it's like, I mean, there's a reason why you have left brain and right brain, and, it's...
First of all, it's a myth.
Whatever. But yeah, no, just like I personally don't necessarily think logically. I'm very much more emotional and like creative and all of that, and I would rather find a creative solution. But I do also know that when you use, philosophy and critical thinking, it kind of streamlines things, and it helps you think logically, and sometimes the problem fixes itself just by thinking about it from that logical perspective. So it's just, that's why, like, when because I took the beta test, and that was something that I noticed about myself that I didn't know about myself, that as creative-brained as I am, I'm also very I can think logically. And for me, because I was always told, like, your creative brain, you're emotional, you're this, you're that. I never got the opportunity to experiment and discover that logical thinking side of myself. And now, like, it was from that beta test that I was like, philosophy makes sense. Critical thinking suddenly makes sense. And I now understand why it's necessary. And then I started realizing how it fit into my life. And so it was just very interesting. That's why I wanted you to talk about it a little bit, because it was like kind of not it didn't, I mean, it kind of did transform my world in a little bit, but it was like just from that, you know, I think it was 3 sections, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think I gave you like 3 messages.
Yeah, like 3 sections just like totally like changed my perspective, and then also made me realize things about myself that I didn't know. So it was like, but it was I had to be very open-minded with it, because I'm like, get to know yourself in this way is a very, not something that I would normally be like, yeah, I'm open to that. So like, you know, when you told me about it, it was cool. And then like when I was actually doing it and going through it, I was like, oh, this is outside of my comfort zone. And I mean, it's
intended to challenge people,
Right.
you know. And I think a lot of it it's because the theme is identity. Like the guided journal in itself is forcing you to take ownership over who you are.
Yeah.
Versus it's much easier to just blame other people or blame like a third party, right? And that's why there's so much friction in the journal itself.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really good friction for people to have, because like I really believe in taking ownership of who you are, because that influences really how you live your life.
Yeah.
It's like a completely different way to live when you stop blaming other people for your circumstance and how you view things. I just also think it's much healthier.
I was just going to talk about how, you know, being pushed outside of your comfort zone is something that not all people, I think we like all say it, but the way that people do it is like very different, and it takes time and it takes practice, and I don't think it's something that like comes exactly naturally. Like I can look at my own friends and see how they navigate their own lives, and I can go, oh, like you need to be pushed out of your comfort zone, but they're not in a place or a time where they can feel like they should be pushed out of their comfort zone, even though that's like the advice that I give, because some people aren't ready for it. And I think it like ties intrinsically into like how they identify themselves within the world, because I think we are so used to being defined by others. We are raised to be defined by others and what people say, that we forget to just look at ourselves and be like, hey, like this is me, not the version that you put on to me. And that's something that I'm personally still working on. That's definitely something you're still working on. You know, maybe it's something you're still working on.
I mean, everyone's always constantly working on it, because as the world shifts and different problems come to light, like we have to figure out how we feel about those different problems. And like going back to like what you said, it's very true. A lot of us rely on external factors for identifying who we are, when in actuality, like we should be figuring that out for ourselves. You know, we tend to rely on a lot of labels, like for example, academics, right? Like how good you are as a student, that's already a label in itself, but it's not reflective of who you could be, where your standing in society is.
Nor does academia correctly reflect all the time how smart a person actually is.
Exactly. Right?
I'm a product of that. For me, I was very lucky with my parents being always like very constantly supportive of me going after dance as my dream. But I did have a lot of people kind of look at me sideways in a way when they were like, you're not in college, you know, and you know, especially now when they have, you know, when I just have a general conversation with somebody and they're like, oh, so like where are you going to college? I'm like, I'm not. You know, and they're like, how do you know so much about this, and this? I was like, well, and like, why aren't you going to college? I'm like, well, personally, school was never for me. I never really liked school. I was lucky that I was homeschooled, and my mom let me learn in the way that I needed to learn. And while still following the, the laws of California and how to homeschool your kids. I mean, and so for me, like, I'm a kinesthetic learner. I learn by doing, because I'm like, reading it, yeah, I can watch it, but until I do it, I don't. Like, and I noticed it severely because I haven't done Nutcracker in 5 years. And this is my first time doing another Nutcracker show. And I think I learned 9 parts in the first 2 days. And and I was watching it, and I realized, I was like, I could not remember, I couldn't do it, and I was getting frustrated because I was like, why can't I do this? And then I realized, I was like, it's because I haven't done it yet. And yeah, even if I totally flop and fall on my butt and, run into somebody, I have to be thrown into it in order to learn it. And so that's always the struggle, because then I feel like it's a very pass or fail way to learn, I feel like, in some ways, but it's the way I learn. And I mean, I wasn't a straight A student.
Even now, being in college and like contrasting that with my experiences in high school, you had to think a certain way or you were going to like not do well, right? And like in college, you realize that whatever you had during high school, that certain mindset, that certain culture on high school academia really doesn't apply to college. And I think I had the hardest time trying to navigate that during my first 2 years. Was, I don't need to get good grades to like always succeed in college. And that was like a factor of a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, because I was just like, how can I do well, and what does it mean to do well without getting the grades that you necessarily want to see? And now I'm at a point where I can say, hey, despite like not doing well in one class and having to take it incomplete on another, that incomplete led me to a research opportunity with another professor. And it's just stuff like that where it's like you had to undo what you've been conditioned to think. And like undo like how you've been thinking in order to reach that point. And that is just so difficult, but it's very rewarding when you figure that out and you figure out the way to be like, I can take a step back, and it's okay to take a step back, because if I don't take the step back, how can I move forward?
Yeah, that's true. Well,
that's great.
Yeah, I know that you have. It's currently 10 o'clock at night, pretty much.
Oh wow!
It's 9:40.
We can keep this going on forever.
I know, we really could talk forever, but I mean, it's just an excuse to have you back. So
we'll talk about more next time if you guys get any questions or
absolutely. So
let us know if you have any questions for Calvin.
And I mean, even Yingru, because this was our first time doing the podcast. We were gonna do this a long time ago for the Wayne McGregor show. We never got to it.
Never happened. We couldn't set a time. You can literally just do this in my dorm, like seriously.
That's the beautiful thing about podcasts. But thank you for being here. I know that you came all the way from Irvine, so I'm super stoked, and I really appreciate it. And thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you.